So Feast Streat today is a relatively, comparatively, it's a relatively large business. How many employees have you got now?
So we've got across part-time and full-time. We've probably got, when we're running at full capacity, somewhere in the region of 50 to 70.
So, and that's come from you and Nicola at Stratford Market?
Well, it actually came from me and Nick at Kidderminster Market, so a lot less exciting than Stratford. Stratford came later. But yeah, it started on Kidderminster Market. It was after a 2-year wait, because obviously my family run markets, and there is a there is, I think, an assumption that we've got a successful business because my family run markets, and because of that I just get given all these pitches, but actually we absolutely run our businesses as two completely different entities, so far different that actually myself and my new assistant went for a meeting there the other day, and by the time we finished the meeting she didn't even realise I was related to the people in the meeting. And I'm being serious, because it's completely commercial. We have no connection financially to one another, apart from I pay them an awful lot of money per year to operate on their shows. Great business, great company, one of the best I work with in the country, and that's not me being biased, they really are. But ultimately, when I wanted my first pitch, the people who were operating back in those days, which a large proportion of the monopoly was taken up by the show people, because they'd done the job very well for many, many years, and because of that they had the monopoly, and so rightly should they have had that monopoly. But it made it very difficult to get in, because they would do exclusive right deals. Numerous exclusive right deals were done with all sorts of shows. So when I made the decision that food in the street needed huge improvement and I was going to have a go at doing it, the first people I naturally went to was my family's business and said, look, I want a food pitch. I said, well, you join the waiting list then. And I was kind of a little bit like, really though? They were like, yeah, because some of these people are our clients and they've been with us for years. We're quite happy for you to join that waiting list. So I did, and I waited 2 years for a new pitch. And a lot of people don't think that. A lot of people are just like, oh, no, his parents run markets, that's it, he just gets given everything. Just absolutely not the case. So you know what, I was fine with that. I thought, you know what, the last thing I want to do is start by making it look like somebody else has given me my success. I've not generated it through hard work. So I waited 2 years. Ultimately, a new contract was won at Kidderminster, and they finally came to me and said, we've got a pitch for you. It's probably not the one you want. It's not a game changer, but it's a little community market, and it's probably the perfect place for you to start. So I started on a Thursday. It wasn't even a weekend, and myself and Nick went down with our little gazebo that we'd set up. Bearing in mind, there was nothing like this. No one had seen this kind of thing before. Everything was done out of a burger van. So we had 70 centimetre paella pans that we'd imported from Spain, a pop-up gazebo, some of these little build-up bars with stools so you could sit and watch us making the food. So we tried to create that little bit of, maybe like when you're in Selfridges and you can sit up those little counters and either have sushi or... So it was that kind of vibe, but with hot dogs. And the reason we chose hot dogs was back in those days, market customers were your nan and granddad or people looking for a bargain. They weren't university lecturers or, people with a lot of money like that, like visit markets now because it's trendy and they want the street food. None of that existed. And if you were going to the market, you were getting a greasy bacon sandwich, that probably wasn't going to be that great. But you would get it at, £1.50. And so for us to create a menu to fit in with those customers, we needed to be able to offer them something quality, but quite simple, because they're just not going to buy Venezuelan food out of a shipping container. They just wouldn't even know what that was. And so we created a hot dog menu from a local award-winning sausage from Wenlock Edge Farm in Shropshire. Fantastic farm, breed all their own pigs, so it's all of their own free-range stuff. They manufacture everything there on the farm. And it's won numerous gold awards. So we naturally went to those, said to them, we want to buy a range of your flavours, black pudding, apple, cheddar and mustard, all these lovely flavours. So you'd choose one, then you'd have it served in a fresh bun that had been delivered to us from a local bakery that morning. Everything had turned up warm and fresh. And chopped real onions, not this rehydrated kind of porridge that taste of onions that, was been and going in burgers for years. Real food, just real simple food, simple menus, simple food done well. And that's what we still do now. And we just started serving the local market shoppers of Kidderminster. But because it was the wow factor out of a 70 centimetre, essentially frying pan, but it was a paella pan, with all these different flavoured sausages, they were big and chunky, and you could tell they were like coarsely ground, so they were quality. People, you just looked, and you could tell by the way we branded it and the way we marketed it and the way we displayed it that it was quality food. And so from that, sales just started coming in, and we were a little bit more pricey than your burger van people, but people didn't mind, and they used to pay it. And we actually had some really unusual reactions. We had one particular couple who I found out later on as like a distant relative of an ex-prime minister, very, very posh. And they lived like in a very large house outskirts of Kidderminster somewhere, and they used to come into the town, do their bit of shopping. And her exact words were to me the one day, she said, "I don't normally eat from people in the street." She was like, "But this is lovely," and as much as that was a little bit like, oh wow, okay, like a peasants like us normally, she meant it in as a compliment. She was like saying, the quality's normally rubbish, we wouldn't normally buy, but this is really lovely, we like it. And they came and they ate from me every week for about 5 years, and they were regular customers. And obviously back in those days, we were still serving teas and coffees out of polystyrene and all those awful things that you used to do back in those days. And we ended up getting mugs for them because she wouldn't drink out of a polystyrene cup. So every time she came, she had her own teacup, and then she would have like a hot dog from us, and it was really bizarre. But
you still in contact with her?
No. Eventually, when I sold that company eventually. And it went with those customers, went with the new owners and stuff. And as far as I was aware, right up until recently, which was, probably 15 years ago, that was, maybe 13 years ago, that they're still going, and still got their customers. So, it was, which is lovely to see. But yeah, so
that was the Kimber Sausage Company.
So that was Kimber Sausage Company.
And so how did that transition from the Kimber Sausage Company to modern day Feast Streat, or at least the beginnings of Feast Streat?
Yeah, so ultimately what happened was I built the sausage company up till we were running multiple vans, and we were operating for people around the country. It was so unique, you hadn't seen before. There was no street food. We didn't even know we were street food. Essentially, we were well ahead of our time. It came from a necessity of there was just no good food in the street, so that's where we came from. We started calling ourselves street food after street food started coming in, because we didn't really even know what that meant. Obviously, street food in the Far East and places like that has been going for years. It's where it comes from. Street food, as we know it now in the UK, is relatively new. Boomed over the last decade. We've been going for 17 years this year, so we were a number of years ahead of ourselves. So when the street food boom started to come in, by that point I was stupidly probably putting the business on the market and wanting to move into bars and restaurants, which is what I did. And we ran those successfully for a number of years, and then we had a number of issues go wrong with the business. It ultimately went into administration. So from that, I decided, because it hit me very personally, very hard. I was a personal bankrupt by the time I was 40, probably a little bit overconfident from a successful business from an early age, and wasn't aware of the risks. And so I went back to what I knew, and I was like, I'm going back on the market. I'm going back on myself. At that point, my wife, we'd got children, so she wasn't working. And I lost everything. And I basically said, well, the only way that I can really get going again and feed the children that I've got responsibilities for is to start from scratch, get an old van, get myself a little street food business and get going again. And it's what I did from scratch. But because I knew the business so well, I knew very quickly how to make it successful. So quite quickly, I managed to get a second one. Then I started to take on employees, eventually moved into my premises. As that started to grow, we were still only doing kind of burgers, hot dogs, chips, that kind of thing, but all good quality as we always had. And our niche was gone, because good quality food in the street you could get now of all sorts of different cuisines from around the world. And it was great because street food had boomed. So now it was more difficult for me to start getting gigs, because we're like, well, we've got burgers and hot dogs, really good ones. So I thought, okay, so I've lost my niche now, and I've come back into this business, and while I've been out of it, it's boomed, and you're no longer that specialist person that people go to anymore. So I thought, okay, well, how do I get that back? How do I go back to being the street food people that you go to, which is what we once were? And I realised quite quickly that the gap in the market for us was that anything done at scale couldn't be managed well by those individual street food vendors, because, and I am generalising slightly, some are able to do reasonable volume, but I'm talking serious volume. I'm talking 50 to 100,000 meals over a 10-day major sporting event. That's the kind of level that we can deliver on now. And I realised that there was very few people that could do that, if any, in the country. So you've now got a distinct problem. Major sporting venues, major music festivals, any large-scale shows that create large footfall. You can't put the majority of your independent street food people into those shows because they won't manage the volume. Their food's lovely, but they're not geared up to keep it coming. So I realised that actually you've got two choices here. If you are one of those type of events that has large amounts of public, you've either got to have poor range and poor quality, or you've got to go with an independent vendor who's going to be great, but he's only going to serve a few people and they're going to run out and your customers are going to be unhappy. So I realised there was a massive gap in the market. And so we put ourselves right in there. And over the last 3 to 4 years, we've basically created the largest range of street food. We probably got the largest range of street food. I'm estimating, but I would say we're definitely in the top 5 largest range of street food cuisines available from one single company from anyone in the UK. And that's 25 brands currently that we're sitting on, of every type of street food you can think of, from Middle Eastern, Mexican, Greek food, burgers, mac and cheese, you name it, we do it. So I created all these different brands, all these different cuisines. I started taking on, corporate background chefs from people like Sodexo, Baxter Story, large-scale catering operators, and saying to them, I'm creating a street food model that fits in at high-level event footfall shows, but it has to be restaurant quality. And even they were a little bit like, how are you going to do that? And I said, don't know, but we're going to make it work. And that is the biggest gap in the market there is. So we have positioned ourselves there. We took on a large premises, commercial kitchens, installed commercial kitchens into this large premises, an ex-meat factory. So all our production is done there now. A team of chefs working on it. And we're now able to provide over 35 trading concessions on any one day, of a range of up to 25 different global cuisines, and we're able to serve 10 to 15,000 people per day on full meals. So by being in that gap, the phone just started ringing, and we now provide services to probably over 400 shows a year, and we've won some contracts with some major global sporting events, which probably some of you will know who that is, coming to the Midlands this year, which I'll be announcing soon. But those are some of the level of the contracts that we're now operating at, and we're distinctly targeting the sports market because it's very poor. And it's crazily poor for the amount of money that you pay for. I think you're a season ticket holder, aren't you, James?
Used to be.
Oh, used to be,
yeah.
So the amount of money that you're spending to go there, you'd expect better.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'd go to grounds up and down the country and be served some of the worst food that I've ever experienced. Yet you're paying a tenner for it.
Yeah.
And I absolutely want to talk about the sports market. I absolutely want to go into these. Maybe not this podcast, but in maybe some future ones we can go really deep into that.
Yeah.
But what I would like to go into a little bit further is when you first went from. So you went from Kimber Sausage Company, then went into clubs and bars, left that, and then came back. So did you go straight into a handmade burger company? So which brands did you have at the time when you first went back?
Well, actually, when I first went back, I created Feast Streat, and it was just a burger, hot dog and chips brand called Feast Streat. And actually, Feast Streat, as we know it now, people don't realise that actually was my first brand. And then what happened was I realised that Feast Streat didn't really have a meaning. And actually, one of the things I always advise people on doing is, excusing the pun, but you've got to spoon feed the public, and that starts with your brand. So you will know now that Feast Streat is our overall brand and doesn't serve a particular type of food. It's the name of our company. It's the trading name. And then underneath that is our 25 brands. And those 25 brands, I'll give you a few examples of this is how hard it is to work out what we sell. So we've got Pit Stop Pork and Ribs, the Gourmet Chip Company. We've got Street Greek. We have got Mac Shack. We've got the Toasty Hut. You know, we've got these. You know, our pizza one is called Carnival Pizza. Right? There's no way you're not going to know what it is once you've read the logo, and that's rule number one of street food. It's great calling it J&R's or you know or this or that or all these quirky, super cool names. But it takes the customer 10 minutes to even work out what you're selling because they're looking at you at a festival site from across the way, and all they can see from there is it just says, you know,
a couple of letters.
Yeah, J&R's or, you know, or Shack or, you know, and it's Shack selling what though? You know, you just don't know. So every single one of our logos, apart from Feast Streat itself, which is our trading name, tells you exactly what you're going to get. And it starts by being that simple. Simple logo, simple menu. Simple to read, very easy to work out how much it is.
So did you see that quite a lot when you were presumably doing some market research before you started or along the way? Did you see a lot of street food vendors whose branding was a little bit ambiguous?
Yeah, and I still see it now. I see it loads. You know, you'll have someone in a horse box and people will be walking up to them. You know, they sell, you know, certain type of food out of a horse box, and you'll get someone walk up and say, "Can I get a pint of cider, please?" It's a prime example, you know, and it literally happened on a show we were running recently, and you know they asked to move us. They said, "Can you move us?" People think we're a bar because we're next to a bar, but there was food the other side. They didn't know what they were, and it was just because it wasn't very easy to work out. And it's just rule number one of, you know, generally new street food traders. They just think about, okay, I need to have a beard and have a check shirt on, and that'll fit in perfectly with the street food boom. You know, am I cool enough? Is my trailer super cool? Is my name so cool that actually, you know, it's a riddle that I've got to work out because it makes me really cool. It's just like, I don't really care about cool. I really care about cues.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't really matter what your Instagram looks like. It's
no.
what you're taking home.
Yeah. And ultimately, so you know, a lot of street food people will be listening to this podcast and they'll be like, I don't really like Feast Streat. I think they're quite commercialised brands, and actually we are. And we don't try and hide behind that. We're not. We don't apologise for being a commercialised brand. We've got really good ethos. We've been using biodegradable for years before people were using biodegradable. We were using biodegradable before Jamie Oliver started using biodegradable. That's how ahead of the time we were. And we do lots of things that have got a great ethos. You know, we do community school projects with where we go into schools and we teach children. It's non-profit. It costs us money to do it. We do it because it's the right thing to do. Those families are customers to us. Their parents spend lots of money with us when they come to events. We give back to the community. But what we don't do is apologise for being a commercialised business, because that's what we are. And because of that, we're not bothered about being super cool. What we're bothered about is being, are we good quality? Do people understand what it is? And is it value for money? And that is what you get from us. So I think probably the biggest mistake I've seen people doing is trying to have that super cool London vibe where, and I love that, don't get me wrong, right? But if it affects your sales, it's automatically just a no for me. And people get it wrong. You know, they make it too difficult to understand. They have a chalkboard with their prices on, which, you know, you need a magnifying glass to be able to read, you know, and it all stems back. If I'm honest, it isn't stem back from me being some street food genius, because I'm certainly not that. You know, the reason why we've got a successful business is because I've ballsed it all up loads of times. And all these mistakes that I'm going to try and help people to avoid by people logging in and listening to this podcast, it's just to save you loads and loads and loads of years of completely and utterly ballsing it up like I have. And that's why I know what I'm doing, but also because I'm from a market family. And, you know, my grandfather, when I was working with him in knee-high, fantastically successful fruiter, brilliant businessman, shops and market stalls all over the country, you know, lorry loads of fruit going out on a daily basis. And he used to say to me, flash is cash. Make it look sure it looks good. Make sure the customers understand it. Make sure they know how much it is. And that's why you'll never go past a fruit stall and go, how much are those apples? So you think about a fruit store you've ever walked past. Have you ever not seen giant prices on a fruit stall, you know straight away how much it is. It's so much per pound, or, you know, it's one of these top things. And it was rule number one. He said, if a customer has to approach you to ask how much something is, you've likely lost the sale, because people have this kind of social anxiety about walking up to somebody and going, how much is that? Because if it's too expensive, they don't want to say, okay, no thanks, and walk away. You need to, so he said, let them make their decision about how good it looks and how much it is before they've even got near you. And that's the rule we live by. You'll see Street Greek, then below that you'll see our menu boards, and they're not written in tiny writing explaining every detail that's in that dish, and then a tiny price. It will just say chicken gyros and the price, and then detail of what's in it is very small below. If you really want to see, you can walk up. But are you happy with the price, and do you know what it is? That's the rule number one that a lot of people make that mistake.
Yeah, and you're gonna smell it, and you're gonna see it in the giant pans.
Yeah.
See, everything's there for you. That makes that makes total sense. So when you went from Feast Streat into all these separate brands, which were the first ones that you went for? What stuck out to you that there's a massive gap in the market, we need this, or this is trendy at the minute and no one's doing it in this market or this area? Which were the first ones that stuck out to you?
Well, if I'm honest, I started by trying to lock off all the cornerstones of street food, what the event organisers go with. So we were already doing burgers and hot dogs. Pulled pork was a huge one at the time. Still is, but it was that pulled pork boom that everybody saw. So we locked that one off. And then, you know, loaded fries, again, another cornerstone of street food. You know, you're pretty much always going to see a loaded fries stall somewhere you go. So we locked off that one. Mac and cheese then had a boom, so we locked that one off. And then after that, it was really, once we got really all the cornerstones of street food, pizza, mac and cheese, burgers, pulled pork, loaded fries, we then started to give our range a little bit more of a foodie edge. So we wanted some more international cuisines in there. So we did Chinese food, for example, which is not particularly adventurous. Everybody eats Chinese food, but it's a great seller. And actually what we've done is we've just done your typical Chinese takeout favourites, because it's, you know, it's not super authentic. You know, a friend of mine that I went to school with, his family own a Chinese takeaway, and he now runs it. And he said to me, Chinese food is not really Chinese. He said, it's the McDonald's of China. And I was like, okay. And he said, better quality, but what I mean by that is it's fast food. He was like, my grandmother doesn't serve me this. He said, but it tastes great, you know, so it's what we all used to. It's what we like. So we don't go with the super authentic Chinese, super healthy kind of, like, you know, because it's just not what people really want. So if you come in us, you're going to get chicken and mushroom curries, you're going to get sweet and sour, you're going to get black bean, you know, choose rice and noodles, you know, fried rice, etc. It's just what people love. I love it, and I buy it. So we locked off Chinese food, and then we moved into a little bit more unusual stuff by doing Greek food, Middle Eastern kebabs, and things like Mexican with the burritos and stuff like that. But again, it's not anything super adventurous. You know, it's like I keep mentioning Venezuelan. I'm a particular Venezuelan street food fan because it's a lot of the time it's wheat free, which I have to be wheat free. But it's, you know, it's still quite niche. I think if you're in a London market, lots of people buy it, but I think a lot of people wouldn't even know where Venezuela was and what type of food they serve.
What type of food do they serve?
So it's South American. So it's obviously they've got like this. Everything is corn rather than wheat based. So you'll get like almost like a corn. It's like a corn.
Like a wrap,
like a pita almost, really, but it's made of corn. They'll put like in it like some of the typical kind of South American stuff, a bit like Mexican stuff. So it's like beans, guacamole, and then shredded pork, shredded chicken, salad, things like that. And I buy from a particular one in Camden Lock Market, and the food's fantastic. And so we'll go. So we don't have quite the unusual range to that level at this point, but we have enough unusual ones that when we're going and taking a contract and we're running the entire food and beverage operation for a festival, they really have a super range. They've got all sorts of different international foods. So we've got Indian food, Greek food, Mexican food, Chinese food, Middle Eastern. So there's some real, global cuisines in there. And then all your cornerstone street food I mentioned earlier. So you're covering your foodies and your mass market, but everything we pump out is as it would be if you was ordering it in a restaurant. That level of quality.
Mm-hmm. So we went from there to that shot really. I remember at the time So that's that sign over there. Obviously, everyone watching this won't be able to see that, but there's a sign in the background with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different street food brands on, and suddenly that exploded to 25 over the space of what was it, 6 months?
Yeah, probably 6 to 10 months. I would have thought.
And what made you expand it so quickly, and how did you do that logistically?
Obviously, by that point, I'd already started to build my kitchen team, and the reason I suddenly was pushed it out so quick was from just those few that we had. People started saying, "Oh, have you seen the range these guys have got?" And I started to get a really fantastic reaction. And then by me saying to them, "Look, we're geared up. We can just do all your food and drink for you. We can just make it easy for you. You don't need to go out to anybody else. All our compliance comes from one person. We'll just pay you one invoice. I'll handle all the safety. All you've got to do is just agree that I'm going to run this for you, and I'm going to make your life for this event really easy. You can go and work on something else." And it's something that operators do like. They like that ease of service from somebody like us. And I realised that actually, if I'm getting this kind of reaction off just those a handful of brands, what about if I was to give them the largest range of street food available from one company in this country? And so we started doing that. And by doing that, my phone rings regularly from a random number. "Hi, I've been passed your details. Somebody said you can just sort this for us," and the business started to sell itself. And obviously we use a lot of visual media, as you know. By constantly advertising the fact through our visual media that this is what you can get from us, people were just like, "Well, why do we need to even have the hassle of finding other people, finding other vendors, chasing invoices, chasing compliance paperwork," which, unfortunately, there is a few companies out there that are a little bit difficult to deal with when it comes to that stuff. And so it becomes a little bit, tedious for certain organisers. So we find actually quite often we get organisers come to us just going, "Last year was just a nightmare. I'm not doing that again. Can you just handle it?" And I send them one link for, we might put in there, there's a bike show that we're doing this year. We're putting 24 different units in there, 6 coffee, 3 ice cream vans. And they got one link that supplied them with all the compliance for all of those different brands, all the different pieces of equipment across all the different units.
And how much time do you think you're saving them by doing that?
Oh, loads, endless amounts. Yeah, I mean, because we offer management services where we won't just come in there and just do the food. I'll say to them, "Look, have you got other vendors? Do you want me to manage them for you? Do you want me to chase them for you? Do you want my team to chase them for the compliance for you?" So we'll go in as lead caterer. And they'll say, "Right, guys, these are the lead caterers. You're welcome back this year, but they are the main caterer. They're our management agent. You've got to go through them." So I can literally take all the work off them if need be. I'll just say, "Let's do a contract, hand it over to me," and if you've got caterers in there that are a little bit slow on paying invoices or, sending their compliance paperwork in, why didn't you just let us have the headache? We'll chase them for you. And we'll pay the invoice up front anyway. So we're charging them directly. So they've got all of their money and no headache.
And are you finding that you're getting a lot of business through the ease of working with you?
Yeah, we get loads, and we're a completely hybrid business. So we're not the type of business that likes to go in somewhere and say, "We'll make your life easier. Just kick all these guys off that have been on here for the last 20 years because, they might be doing it part-time, so they could be a little bit slow sending their compliance stuff in because they've got a full-time job." We understand this stuff. We're not a cannibalisation business. We don't go in and say, "Get rid of all of these and we'll just take all the money." That's just not how we work. But what we do is go, "What do you need as an organiser?" "Okay, well, look, I want to keep all these independents. They've been with me for years. They're really loyal. But, some of them work full-time, or some of them are a little bit slow on their paperwork, or some of them are a little bit older and they're not actually that great on digital, and we need it to be digital, or they've got it in a folder and they have to take photos of it and it's slow." So we'll go, "Okay, cool, let's sit down then. Let's look after these guys. Let's look after these independents. But what can we do to make that process easier for you?" And that's what we'll do. So we'll either go in and go, "We'll just run the whole lot for you," or we'll go in and we'll do, we'll manage the existing traders you've got in there. Or sometimes they just go, "Do you know what? We just need some more unusual brands, or we need people who can go through the volume quicker because our queues are too long and people are complaining at our festival." So we pretty much fit in with what the organiser needs, as long as it's commercially viable. we'll basically build a model to fit what the organiser's stresses are and take it away.
Interesting. So let's go back a little bit. You mentioned visual media, and you mentioned, I don't think we've spoken about it on here, but we've spoken extensively for obvious reasons about the way that you use videos and the way that it's a little bit different to how any of my other clients use video.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about what you do with the products that we make.
Yeah, so I mean, the majority of the videos that your company makes for me are aimed at the commercial market. It's business to business marketing rather than business to customer, because the majority of the shows that we go to, the deal is we provide the services, you bring the people. So we don't really need to do what a lot of the more independent street foodies do, who don't work on large-scale shows. They might do pop-ups, for example, on car parks, and they're reliant on creating a sole brand. So you've got some really fantastic brands in the West Midlands. You've got Baked in Brick, you've got the English Indian, you've got like lots of these ones. A lot of them are associated to the Digbeth model. When they're working at Digbeth, it's not so bad, because obviously the Digbeth guys, they track the numbers and they've got a good brand there. But if they're working on their own and they're doing a pop-up, they obviously quite often need to have a good following on their social media directly to their customer base to get them to
turn up on the day,
to be able to generate those sales. We don't really do any of that top work. We work all contractual stuff. So we don't actually have to have a direct following with the actual public, because our fixed sites, we're there all the time. Stratford upon Avon, 48 weeks of the year, every single Sunday, 11 brands in there, food court. People know it's there. They've been coming there since 2012. They bring their families, they dine, they have a drink, sit by the river. And we do a little bit of marketing for that. You've done a film for us for that, directly promoting that area, but that's quite rare. Most of what we do is promoting directly to what our customers are, i.e. organisers, sporting venues, or anybody else really that requires what the services we offer. So the majority of the videos that we've done together have been aiming at that market, and I just think it's a great tool, and I think a huge amounts of companies miss it because they're either more focused on trying to make their business look really cool, or they're focused on directly talking to customers, but they miss the fact that actually they could be talking to business opportunities outside of just general customer sales. So obviously for us, I pitch directly to the camera to loads, and actually the reaction we've had off it has been phenomenal. I mean, the growth we've had would absolutely not have happened if we hadn't got the message out to them of what we do. So it's been key. The services you provided for me have been absolutely key, because it's all right having loads of brands and a website, but if you're not really driving traffic to those, and it doesn't drive that much traffic to our website. We drive a little bit of traffic to the website. What really happens is they see this stuff on our social media platforms and then message us directly through that platform to say, this is great. Can we talk more? Can we jump on a Zoom? Can you send us a proposal? Or we'll do a proposal for people and we'll put all those live links into it. So actually, I did one the other day for a very well-known football club. And the first thing I did at the top of the page, I had it all written. You could read the whole lot. But the first thing I did was I said, click it here. And they clicked it and watched me pitch it live to the camera, all about our business, showing all behind the scenes.
So which video did you send them first? Which was the one that was at the top?
The last one that we did regarding the sporting grounds.
Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense. So what was next?
So after that, it was then really talking, so you used to read down a little bit, and it was talking about the food that we produce in our kitchens. So next minute, they click on it, said, meet my team in the back of the kitchen. So next minute, it's me walking around with you, and we're capturing all our chefs making everything from scratch, fresh. So we're not making this up. It doesn't come it doesn't come all pre-packaged, and then we undo it all to make it look like it's all been made by our team. It comes in fruit and veg from the wholesale market. And then, it comes in as raw boxes of chicken. Everything gets marinated, everything's getting chopped, everything's getting prepped. It's real food created by us It's not a charade. So because of that, we wanted you to capture that for us. Walk round, and we went round, didn't we? We talked to the chefs, we watched them making the food, watched some of our teams on the prep. We went in the big cold rooms, went through some of the products that had been made, some of the chicken that was marinating in there, and we just showed everybody what it's about. And it just shows the world that you really do practice what you preach. And you know, the other day we had a very well-known committee come to our Stratford site. And they'd seen all the films, they'd seen everything else. This committee was for the major sporting event in Birmingham this summer that we were supplying. And they wanted to come try the food. They wanted to have a look how we operate. And they wanted to see that the videos that we put out, great, they look okay. Is it real? Do these guys really do what they say?
Did they say that?
Yeah. Because they said that we're so niche, that their exact words were, the consultant for them said to me, this company's too good to be true, Ryan. So, you know, I hope you're real. And I just said to him, there is nothing fake, and anyone can come and see it. Anyone's allowed to come to our depot and have a look at what we do, you know. And I said, you know, I invite people out. You know, we just had a meeting yesterday with a major shopping centre operator with about a new potential model that we're bringing out. And I said to him, why don't you come to one of our food courts? Come and have a lunch on me, try the food, see how we operate, have a look at my team, have a look at them in their uniforms, have a look at their safety, have a look at their hygiene. And I just said, there's nothing to hide, come and have a look. The committee that came out. Yeah,
I need to beep that.
Yeah, we'll beep that. We'll beep that, yeah, beep that out, yeah. The committee, should I say, the committee, shall we say, that came out for a major sporting event. They said it was some of the best food they've ever tried for the public sports market. They just said they don't understand how we're able to do it at scale. And so, you know, the next thing is they're going to come here and watch how we produce stuff. You know, my chefs are producing, you know, some weekends, you know, some weeks ahead of a busy week, and they'll produce a ton of marinated Greek chicken. That's just one brand, you know. So this is real, handmade, you know, by them. There's no machines. This is how they do. This is how it's done. If it was done in a restaurant.
And how did you develop that logistically? How did you go from being a market trader to having a powerful, like logistically powerful business that can deliver really large scale, like you mentioned, what was it, 100,000 meals, something like that? Yeah,
so we've got to do, at that particular event, we've got to do somewhere in the region of 50 to 100,000 meals over a 10-day period. So it's 5 to 10,000 meals.
It's quite a big gap between Kimber Sausage Company and that.
Yeah.
So how did you arrive at that?
Well, obviously, you know, scaling up bit by bit, we've scaled up over a period of time, reinvestment, and bringing in the right people. So I've got a really fantastic team. So I've got guys who've been with me for years who know the job amazingly well. And then I've got, and then on top of that, I've brought in specialist people. So, you know, we've got finance manager, we've got a head chef. My head chef his background is Sodexo, Baxter Story, Compass, you know, Jockey Club. Those are major corporates, you know, some of them global. And I brought in people like him, you know, and with the people I've got, I have to pay them well. You know, these are corporate professionals. But what I've done is I've said to them, look, I'm scaling this company. We are going to improve the special event market. And we've put a huge dent in that in the public show realm. But in the sports world, which we're now moving into, I'm confident within the next 24 months, you're going to see a distinct improvement in a number of large-scale sporting type venues, and we'll be at the forefront of that. And the only way that I could do that is to bring in people who are from those kind of level backgrounds that understand large-scale logistics, you know, major banqueting, and you know, the logistics that are behind those kind of, you know, I mean, my head chef fed 1,000 people by himself by using a certain logistical process by banqueting. And so the cost effectiveness of that delivery was amazing. And so he understands that. So, you know, our depot now is like, you know, a couple of people have called it like a wholesalers. When they come in, it's like a wholesalers because we have that much stock here. We hold, you know, several £1,000s worth of stock all the time. And we call it building a job. So when the guys go out, they'll get a list of different from our event sheet. They'll get a list of brands that are going to certain locations, and they'll get a high, mid, or low stock estimate, which is then structured into an Excel spreadsheet. So they put into an Excel spreadsheet mid, and populates every single brand and every single ingredient that must be packed to go out to that particular show. It's all structured. So by that, our packing teams then go around, pack those, put them all in, get them ready, label those trolleys up. They get pushed into our cold rooms. And then when our operational teams arrive at 5 o'clock in the morning, ready to go to shows, their trolleys are made up for them, ready to go out. And off they go, all prepped, all ready to go, chef-made food, labelled and ready to roll. And the only way I could do that is by bringing in people who have an understanding of that background, which is what I've done.
Of course, it's recruiting people that have done a similar job, but for really big businesses that are logistically very strong.
Yeah, and this is exactly it, but don't do what we do. So it's fine in saying to them, look, we're not the same business, so you can't put in the same format, but you are coming from that background. So you've got good ideas of stuff people have done that might be similar. Mm-hmm. So how can you help me to build a street food business operate like we do? Doesn't exist. So because of that, I can't copy anybody else. I've got to make my own process. So the only way I've done that is to bring in people that come from a different level of scale catering and ask them to adapt process to my market, which is what we've been doing. And we currently got a online digital platform being built which controls our full stock, staffing and HR and all income. Through our PDQs and cash sales. And that one system is being built by a tech provider, which will give us a platform to be able to scale the business even further with a controlled method for wastage, stock control, staff, and income.
So that sounds like something that, again, doesn't really exist, and that is you're innovating in that way as well. How did that come about?
We worked with a tech provider on a number of different things during COVID, which was for things like pop-up events, online ordering, and we just built a relationship with them. Really great company. They are a new startup, but they've won tech awards. They're a really great company, and they've pushed with us to pilot this stuff with them for a long time. In the end, I said to them, look, the online ordering isn't really a big deal for me. So you're kind of trying to push me into something I just don't really have that much interest in, because, for us to go and do 50 to 100,000 meals, you can't do that on online ordering. It's just impossible. Yeah. So, and they're aware of that, so we're operating at a scale that was really kind of pushing beyond the realms of what they're offering. So because of that, I said, not really benefiting me by, and I'm willing to help you regardless, but that's not the right model for you. They said, well, what would work for you? And I said, a completely bespoke online tech system that for a company like us. And basically the deal I did with them is they said to me, okay, if we build that for you, will you be happy to give us the hand over the rights to sell it to other companies and competitors of yours? I said, yeah. Because we're not successful because we've got an online digital platform. So it's not a threat to me. So I just said, absolutely, yeah. If that helps another company to operate their business well, cool. I'm happy with that. So it's probably $250,000 to £400,000 worth of software that's being built for us, and it's being built simply so that they can resell it. So it costs me nothing.
And how far along the process are you?
I'm meeting with him next week to pilot it.
Oh, cool! So this is close to being finished.
It is. The only issue they've got is the online processing is through Stripe at the moment, and I'm not a fan of Stripe. It doesn't work for us as a company.
Why is that?
It's just the way Stripe is essentially not really a merchant service. Stripe is a kind of a link between a merchant service and it's kind of a hybrid merchant service. It's very expensive to pay for, and it links you between kind of your bank account with like sales through a very basic platform. I've said to them, look, if we're building a platform, it's got to be a proper platform. So because of that, they're in the process now of, they've finalised the deal with Barclaycard. So Barclaycard are going to be running integration through their systems, and that integration then will work directly with Barclaycard, and you don't have to pay kind of a middleman, which is basically what Stripe is. So, but
is it a little bit like PayPal? Is that how it works?
Kind of, yeah. PayPal, SumUp, all of these, they're all kind of the same, but we're going to be going directly through Barclaycard. It'll be all an integrated system, and Barclaycard will be integrated and live, ready for testing in May. So what we're doing is we're running through Stripe, just are testing a couple of brands, not throwing all our eggs in one basket, but we're going to test the software. I'm meeting the director. He's coming from America next week, and I'm meeting him, and we're going to run a test on the software through April. And if it works, we'll integrate to Barclaycard by April, and then from that, hopefully, the whole company will move on to that.
And what will that bring you? What benefits will that bring the business?
Reduction in our merchant charges for a start from SumUp. We get a special deal from SumUp anyway. It's not the typical deal that your average vendor gets, but because we've got good amount of sales going through there. But it will give us a better platform, a more established platform, and a reduced fees, which, you know, based on what the work we've got coming up, would save us a lot of money.
Interesting. That's cool. So I think we should probably film that meeting.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good note to finish on, to be honest with you. I think weve
I think so. Stephanie's in IKEA buying new things for the office, and she's ringing me off the hook. So we better stop it there.
Well, we'll call it there, and we'll see you next time.